This vanilla sponge cake feels like beautiful clouds. With whipped cream, it's light, moist, and delicious. It's perfect for kids' birthdays. In fact, I had it as a smush cake for my 1-year-old. She was too nice to it, so we ended up eating it anyways. First step is to crack 4 eggs. Make sure the whites are separate from the yolk. If any yolk gets in your eggs, please repeat. To beat the whites, you need to have a clean, dry bowl with nothing else except for whites. So once you separated them, you're going to beat your whites and your yolks separately. In the yolks, you're going to add 90 grams of sugar and beat well until it's yellow light consistency like this, and add a bit of vanilla extract. Mix it a bit together and you're ready. With the whites, you mix it simultaneously or right after if you don't have 2 mixers, and you want to beat it slowly and gradually to get into this fluffy consistency. At the end, you add about 50 grams of sugar. Then you slowly mix in your whites into the yellows, and slowly with spatula mix in your flour. All of this has to be slow, gentle, because otherwise your dough will fall down, because all the efforts with yolks and whites was to make sure the whites are fluffy and stay like this. So you add it in batches. I added it in about 3 batches. For flour, you're gonna need about 100 grams, and you gently mix it with spatula. Make sure you don't use a mixer or the dough will fall. Once it's ready and you get this beautiful consistency, just stay patient. It's a very straightforward exercise, but the sponge cakes are really finicky. If you don't do it right, they might not rise well, but it's straightforward to do. So then you're going to want to make sure you put some parchment paper at the bottom of your form in which you're going to bake, and I have a 6-inch form, and also on the sides. Make sure you don't add any grease or butter onto your parchment paper on top, otherwise the actual sponge cake will not rise, because the dough needs to stick to something, which is parchment paper. You're going to put your forms in the oven at 180 degrees for about 35 minutes. You can check if it's ready by putting the toothpick in, but make sure to not open the oven for the first 20 minutes or the dough will not rise. So then once it cools down, you take it out from the parchment paper, and in my case I was assembling the cake the next day, so I put them in the cellar wrap tightly and put it in the fridge. But of course, if you're going to assemble it the same day, then once it's cool, you can start assembling and making your cream. So this is how I just wrapped it in cellar wrap, just to quickly show you, and this way it doesn't get soggy or dried up. For cream, we did whipped cream, so we used 35% cream, and I only added 2 tablespoons of icing sugar because I have little kids, but classical version, you'd need a cup of icing sugar, and you gradually add it. The trick with whipped cream is to make sure to start with a 4 setting on KitchenAid, and then slowly increase it to 6. You're going to beat it probably for about 15 minutes, but watch that you don't overbeat it. You want soft peaks and then hard peaks. Otherwise, if it gets into butter and you beat it too quickly, you have to start over. So this is how it's going to look, and then you're going to assemble your cake. Take it out from the cellar wrap if you baked it night before like I did, and then you're going to cut each of the sponge cakes into half. If you have a knife like this specific for cutting the cake, fantastic. If not, just use a knife and cut carefully in half. It's very easy to cut them. And then you're going to assemble your cake by first layering a little bit of whipped cream to attach the bottom layer, and then you in my case, because I'm doing it for little kids, I used actually formula to moisten my layers of cake. You do want it to make the cake spongy and moist. But in a classical scenario, you're going to use a cup of sugar and a cup of water and boil it for a few minutes to dissolve sugar, and then just put that on top to moisten your layers. And then you're going to add the whipped cream, and you're going to add quite a generous amount because we're making a lot. And I forgot to mention, I think I had about 750 ml to a liter of whipped cream. And then you're going to repeat the same process for all other layers. And this is such a nice cake. I will definitely be repeating it many times, and I definitely suggest you try it. And it's perfect for smashing because all the ingredients are very light and fluffy, so it's not a heavy version. You know, some people make it with oatmeal, which surely is healthy, but for a one-time occasion, I think you can have this little thing, especially because you have quite a little bit of sweetness here. So then once you have all your 4 layers, surprisingly, cake turns out pretty high and big, even though it was a small 6-inch cake. And then you're going to add your whipped cream on the sides as well. just like that. And I kept it in the fridge for I think 2 or 3 hours before guests arrived after I assembled it, so it was just fine. It was also outside for probably an hour, and again, whipped cream was just fine. It's quite stable this way. Of course, you don't want to keep it out in the heat, in the summer outside for too long, but you get an idea. And then because it's kids cake, of course I decorated with just the berries and dry fruits to make it healthy, but you can add any other more colorful sprinkles or dyes, whatever you like. It was very basic to assemble it and decorate it, and the kids love berries, so this was a perfect easy option. And voila, we were so happy. She was so happy. Everybody was so happy. You could see how easy to cut into the dough, and again, cannot recommend enough. Follow us for more delicious recipes, and I can't wait to speak with you soon. Ciao.